Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Today I'm going to talk to you about Bitcoin dominance and Bitcoin season and discuss when is this going to end? When are altcoins going to see their time to shine? Since Bitcoin has been the star of the show for quite some time. Please remember to subscribe and like this video. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if you're interested in seeing more content like this. I also have a free Telegram group, the Snake Pit, which I'll have links to in the video description below, where I do daily chart analysis, market updates, and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. It has been a while since altcoins have been in control. Right now, the Bitcoin season index score is 20, and you can see 20 is a pretty historically significant level for Bitcoin season. We have dipped as low in 2023 as a level of 4. We've hit levels even, lower than that in 2018. Those are bear market. Well, 2018 was a bear market year. In 2019, we hit levels that were quite low, and in 2020 we came down to like 11. So I'm thinking we're likely to hit levels kind of in this range here, getting down to the 10 to 11 range before we start to really carve out a bottom and head back up. So this is really not the time that you would expect altcoins to shine. And if we go up to months, it is very much Bitcoin month as well. So if I drag this out here, we got a score of 16. It has been a long time since we've seen an altcoin month. And if we go to like the year, it is Bitcoin year. I think that's unmistakably the case. Although it does look like a slow change in trend has been taking place since 2023. We've been putting in higher highs and higher lows. So if we see this continue, I think the altcoin year will be next year, and we can start to make our way into it as we progress throughout the rest of this year. So that's kind of a look at things from a Bitcoin season versus altcoin season perspective. It really just is not time for altcoins to shine right now, but Bitcoin dominance is a really key metric that we're going to want to look at to get a better idea of when that time might come for the market. So I'm taking a look at Bitcoin dominance on the weekly, which I think is a pretty sensible time frame. I'd also like to look at it on higher time frames as well. Lower time frames really don't interest me as much with dominance. I've drawn out a triangle formation, which I feel like you can almost argue is a giant bear flag for Bitcoin dominance. And I think that that is exactly what this is. I feel like eventually Bitcoin dominance is going to break down out of this bear flag and find a chopping range, probably in the 30 to 40% range, to establish some kind of new floor. And I think it's likely to happen this cycle, that it falls out of this triangle. Now, granted, there's only really 2 data points I use for the top of the triangle, and just maybe 4 or 5 for the bottom part of the triangle. So you do take this diagram with a grain of salt. We're currently at a dominance level of 56.63. We did put in, I believe we wicked to a higher high today on Bitcoin dominance when Bitcoin was getting near 70K. Right now, Bitcoin's at 69.3-ish K. So, there's a good chance we're going to be testing 70K pretty soon. It's been a while since we've been up that high. If you look at in terms of horizontal support, we're pretty much at that right now. So I'm expecting a, top for Bitcoin dominance to occur somewhere around this yellow trend line. I think there's a good chance we hit it. And, we could go a little bit above it. I think 58% is certainly a reasonable target. I've heard calls for 60%. It's possible. I'm not going to rule it out. It's not my base case. People thinking 70%, I find that really hard to believe. And I would probably say, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Let's go ahead and throw a Gaussian channel on here, weekly Gaussian channel. Something I had pointed out is that the Gaussian channel was green and it did inflect back in 2023 in December. And we've seen this kind of now start to widen and go concave down. The last time that happened, we saw Bitcoin dominance begin to collapse. It is not collapsing this time. It is actually staying above the channel. But so, there is always a possibility, and we should consider this. I haven't really considered it, but if Bitcoin starts to show way more strength than the rest of the market, this could flip concave up again. Okay. We need to see some more significant upward movement for that to happen, but it certainly is possible that if we get a strong Bitcoin dominance for weeks in a row, the Gaussian channel could flip concave up, and that could create some issues, certainly for the altcoin market. I'm not sure that that's what's going to happen, or that's what's most likely to happen. I just can't really get my head out of the fact that, we have this pretty long term from 2022, really long term logarithmic growth. If I could draw it in here for you, I drew this in my last Bitcoin video, and you can see that it's just been kind of, up and decreasing in terms of the strength of the Bitcoin dominance. We can take a look at some other metrics to try to get an idea of what might be in store. I do think that on rate cuts, Bitcoin dominance could spike. And I think that's where you could potentially see a wick up to 60%. It's not out of the question for that to happen. Again, my base case has been around 58 as being a top, but are we going to really argue over 2%? I mean, the bottom line right now is that Bitcoin dominance is holding up relatively well, despite the fact that it looks kind of crappy on a longer time horizon. Sorry, I mean, drawing random stuff. Let me grab this. So I turn on the 50-week and 100-week HMAs, and you can see that we had a death cross back in December of these, but it looks like a potential golden cross could be forming soon. If we get a golden cross on Bitcoin dominance, that could be the very thing that takes Bitcoin dominance over 60%. So I do want to draw out that as a possibility that if this 50-week manages to overtake the 100-week HMA, that could start to turn the Gaussian channel back towards concave up, and that could really represent a pretty surprising scenario where dominance picks up some strength. It hasn't happened yet. We do have a red candle forming here at resistance. Actually, it looks like the previous high was a little bit higher than what we got today. So 56.78% on the weekly is what I'm seeing, but still a very, very high target, the second highest that we've seen. So that's sort of something to consider. If we look at the weighted Bollinger Bands, we can see kind of a breakout happening. I mean, this channel has just been straight up for the longest time. I mean, it did kind of come down for a little bit, and it just kept recovering, and it keeps riding the median line here. And it seems like the Bollinger Bands are squeezing a little bit, but it looked like we had kind of a nice little breakout to the upside. And, that is concerning certainly for altcoins. The alt charts pattern, and sorry, this is an AI thing, is showing that we did break out of a rising wedge, which is bearish. So I've been focusing on that rising wedge for quite some time. And the downside target out of that rising wedge, right now they're calling it a double top, is about 50%, which I think is a reasonable target. And as far as the parabolic SAR goes, we are in an uptrend. And to invalidate that uptrend on the weekly, we would need to see Bitcoin dominance close beneath 54%. We are a long ways away from that at the moment. Doesn't mean that we won't enter into a downtrend. It's just that we're a ways away from that. It just doesn't look strong to me. I mean, despite what's been going on today, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the strength. Gunnar EMA has been bullish for a really, really long time. We had a bullish cross in January on the weekly, and these crosses are very significant, but notice how the band has been narrowing and narrowing. If these meet, we get a bearish cross. So all that would take probably is for a significant drop. If we did drop to the 50% level, and altcoins got this sudden boost, that would be bearish for dominance. So we have that as well. If I'm just going off the chart, I'm not really super bullish on dominance. But if I go off of the fact that rate cuts are likely coming in September, interest rates are still high, then I'd say, okay, I think dominance probably still has a little more life in it. I'm just trying to find that life on the charts, and it is a little bit hard to find. I think the point for the bulls is probably the weighted logarithmic Bollinger Bands. Those, if I put those back on, they do look bullish. Other than that, I haven't really seen much bullish. The potential incoming golden cross with the 50 and 100 week whole moving average. So we need to look under the hood probably, and it is kind of different when you're looking at an asset that's not really traded like with US dollars. This is a metric. But if we pull out the bull bear power trend, it really looks like the bulk of the bullishness for dominance peaked in October of 2023, and it's just kind of been going down since then. We did recently put in a higher high, so that is a little concerning. But I think in the grand scheme of things, we're not going to take this high out. I think this was probably the high for dominance this cycle. If you go back to past cycles, you can see that there was a buildup in 2019 with dominance peaking in early 2020. And in the past, you had this buildup. Will we get a buildup again with a mountain that's higher than this one? It is possible that that could happen. It's really not my base case for it to happen, but it could happen. We need to acknowledge that. I have a little bit of confirmation bias, I think, based on the way this chart looks. And it just looks like the bullish impulses get weaker and weaker over time, and I can't ignore that. Yeah, I have to look at the charts and read what they're telling me. ADX and DI right now shows a fairly strong trend at around 35%. Bulls are in control for dominance and have been in control really in a strong way since January of 2023. So this is for a while where we have not had a bearish cross of this metric yet. Okay, it's just been oscillating in strength, and it looks like it might be picking up for another leg up. We should watch this very closely. So that's sort of a neutral point. Average sentiment oscillator, we can see, has just been bullish, bullish, bullish. We did have a brief bearish cross here in February, and that corresponded to this downtrend. This bubble is not as impressive as the 2023 set of bubbles, right? So this huge bull bubble, which barely had a little bearishness. So, I'm not thinking that we get back up to these levels. Like if you look in the past, dominance does tend to have its crescendo and then start to weaken. This has been like a really, really long, lengthy, strong dominance pattern. So I feel like the end is near. Maybe we see a little bit of strength into September, but I see that fading out in Q4 at the latest. I don't know. I mean, at absolute latest would be early Q1 of 2025, but I think by Q4 we're going to see this start to weaken, and that might even be generous. Let's look at the 2-week price momentum oscillator. So if I pull that up, I love this. This is on the 1 week. I like looking at this on the 2 week. It tells a story of what's happened with dominance in the past. And we can compare that. Dominance has never had a higher price momentum. Again, price is not really the word I'm looking for here, but I don't know what else to call it. So this is the reverse Chandy momentum oscillator. I'm not going to call it that. It's price momentum. That's what I like to call it. So this is September 2019. We hit a level of 70.67, which is the all-time high for this metric. Before that, we hit a level of around 65.22. This was in December of 2015. And then we had a double top in April and June of 2023 for Bitcoin dominance on the price momentum oscillator. And it's been in a downtrend since. I anticipate for this downtrend to continue. The signal line currently is red on the 2 week. Now it could turn green. And, I think if it does, we're very likely to just put in some kind of lower high. So I think we'll maybe print a lower high on price momentum, flip the signal line green, and then I think it's just down from there. Okay, I think from that point, we're going to go down again. So I am bearish on Bitcoin dominance heading into the end of the year. I think the bulk of the upside move is over with. I think you won't see any stronger moves than what occurred here. So I think whether we hit 58% or 60%, it's not going to matter that much. I don't think altcoins are going to get super wrecked like they did in 2023. I think they will get wrecked on a future Bitcoin dominance sustained pump should we get one. We do have a double bottom here that we should pay attention to, so we could see some strength. I mean, we could even hit this top right here or potentially take it out. I don't know, but regardless, I think you're not going to see this strong of a move for quite some time to the upside. I think if anything, we're looking at a strong move to the downside coming again by the end of the year. So I love this metric. It's one of my favorites to use to study long-term trends. And this gives me confidence that Bitcoin dominance probably isn't going to be hitting 70 on the price momentum oscillator. It's probably not going to take out this all-time high. If it did, that would be a very big shock to me. But I don't think so. So I think, altcoins, yes, still in accumulation mode, but makes sense to be heavy Bitcoin, of course, but this will not last forever. Going back to the weekly time frame, let's take a look here. Again, I'm not going to be looking at the daily because I don't care about the daily with Bitcoin dominance. Some of these metrics won't really make sense to use on dominance. I think what we could look at is the wave trend. That certainly is probably a valuable tool to look at. So the wave trend oscillator. We've never seen anything like this, right? So like if you go to 2015, we hit the red zone up here. The red zone is like peak bullishness. Then in 2018 September, we hit the red zone, and we hit it again in 2019, a year later. We failed to hit it in 2021 and in 2022, but here we are hitting it not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 7 times, and we're about to hit potentially an 8th. It just looks like, honestly, a series of lower highs. And I think that's what it will be until we fall out of this window. I think this next time is when we will fall out of the window. I think we might print another 1 or 2 of these dots, and then I think it's down we go for dominance. So Bitcoin dominance is on borrowed time. The wave trend is showing that, and this is kind of reflective of what's going on in the chart with the very with the rising wedge, right, where you have just an impulse wave, it kind of dies out. Another impulse wave that's not as impressive, it kind of dies out. Another impulse wave kind of dies out. I think that pattern is likely to pretty much play itself out probably through Q3 and maybe a little bit into Q4, and then I think you're going to see a pretty substantial drop for Bitcoin dominance. So let me think if there's any other indicators that I want to throw on here. Again, with dominance, you don't have as many to choose from because it is not really a crypto chart. I do think we could look at the average true range. I think that would actually provide us some good data. Look at what's been going on. I mean, the trend for dominance really, the most volatile it ever was in 2017. We had a secondary peak in 2021. This is heading down, not up on a weekly time frame. So dominance just is less and less impressive over time, which makes sense as the altcoin market matures, Ethereum matures. Bitcoin starts to have less of an effect on the overall space compared to what it used to in the past. Trying to think if there's anything else we want to look at. Maybe we can look at the Snabble RSI and also the MACD. So let's throw that up. I like to look at these together. I prefer the Snabble RSI over the standard RSI, usually because it is more exaggerated with the exponential moving average. Let's go ahead and zoom into the present time. And we can see we do have bullish divergence on the MACD. So it's something to pay attention to. But notice these bullish divergences have just been getting less and less impressive. Unless we're about to curl back to the upside in a big way, which would shock me, I would actually be quite surprised if that happened. It just looks like lower highs. Snabble RSI hit 100 in, I think, October. Last time it got near that high was May of 2022. So it doesn't hit these levels very often. So it really looks to me like we are close to peaking again and maybe chopping around a little bit more before dominance just finally gives in. Probably, like I said, towards the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, if I had to guess. I could be wrong about this and things could flip around. You know, that is certainly possible, but it's just not my base case. I have to go with what the data tells me. The data is telling me Bitcoin dominance is on borrowed times. Trix bubble would certainly apply here. We can, I mean, just look at this. It's just lower high after lower high, straight on down. I mean, here you have June of 2022. You see my head moves. I have this on another monitor, and look at this head and shoulders pattern too that you have in there. I mean, if you could draw it like this, if you wanted to have more touch points, maybe. It just doesn't look like it's a very nice chart, right? Bitcoin dominance looks like, you know, it's on borrowed time. It doesn't look like it's going to spike like crazy like what it did from here to here. It just doesn't look that way. I think it is on its way out. We are tired of Bitcoin being in charge. Especially if we're heavy altcoins or we want to see altcoins start to move. It's really getting tiring having Bitcoin in control. And, you know, it'd be nice for Bitcoin to actually take out its all-time high of 73.5K before the halving. That could actually, before the rate cuts, which I think is actually a fairly likely scenario at the way things are going. That could actually end up thrusting altcoin season earlier. We could have altcoin season in Q3. Like I said, maybe sooner than we actually might want. Stochastic oscillator is kind of at topping levels. Now, keep in mind, it can last up here for a while. I mean, in 2023, it spent a lot of time up here. But we do have these moments where it just kind of peaks up and then goes straight down. So I think we've seen enough. I think, you know, we can make a prognosis. My prognosis is the most likely scenario is that Bitcoin dominance will top somewhere around rate cuts, probable rate cuts in September. Should Bitcoin take out its prior all-time high and get to like 80 to 90K before rate cuts happen, I think that altcoin season is likely to arrive a lot sooner than if it doesn't. So I'm looking at an altcoin season starting as soon as this quarter, and no later than sometime in mid quarter 4. I think worst case scenario would be like early quarter 5. So what's the takeaway message from this? And again, nothing in this video is to be considered financial advice, but the takeaway message is that it could be somewhat irresponsible to have no altcoin exposure and no Ethereum exposure at this stage in the cycle. I think if you want to be extra conservative, having around 80% Bitcoin, 5 to 10% Ethereum, and like 5 to 10% altcoins could be a sensible approach to the market, with the idea that you probably will be DCing out of Bitcoin as soon as it breaches its all-time high and start to put in a new one, because that is likely where you're going to see people. And then with rate cuts, people are going to be taking those profits and thrusting them into Ethereum in the altcoin market. It could take a while for that to play out. It could play out over months, but I think having some altcoin and some Ethereum exposure makes sense to take advantage of that time if and when it materializes. So yeah, if you want more updates like this, the regular updates on Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum dominance, others dominance, we look at all the dominances, even sometimes DeFi dominance. Join my free Telegram group, Snake Pit. Links in the video description below. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. What do you think about Bitcoin dominance? Do you think that it's something that we should look at regularly, that it's as important as like a lot of people make it out to be? Let me know in the comments what you think. And yeah, so I will see you at the next video. And I hope that you're having a great start to your week or weekend, wherever you are in the world. Be safe and take care. Bye.